3 years ago, Alucard, the son of Dracula, approached the temple and tomb of the ancient Egyptian goddess Sekhmet to find the source of her power. The vampire priestess of Sekhmet attacked him to prevent him from doing so, but they were no match for him, as he eliminates them one after the other and went into the temple. In there, he found traces of Sekhmet blood, and while he was still on it, he got attacked again by advanced soldiers. They put a fight but were still no match as Alucard annihilated them, and as he approached the tomb, he was disappointed because the tomb was empty and he couldn't find the source of Sekhmet's power. In the present, Ursabet, which had become Sekhmet, couldn't keep the eclipse for long, as there was daylight once again. Maria was still grieving her mother's sacrifice, while Alucard comforted her, wishing he had arrived earlier to save her. They all discussed as Annette informed them of how Ursabet drank the blood of Sekhmet and absorbed her power. That was why she couldn't be defeated. Alucard told them of his expedition to Sekhmet's tomb, but couldn't find the source of her power. He further explained how the Egyptian deity possesses two souls, the Ba, present in the blood, and the Ka, present in the goddess's heart and preserved in a mummy. Alucard traced the stolen mummy and sought Richter's help in retrieving it in Paris, which caused Maria to frown in disapproval. Ursabet, now a bit weak, mourned the death of her friend Drolta, who had been murdered by Alucard, vowing that when she regained her strength, she would tear him limb from limb. Annette spoke with Richter as he was skeptical about going to Paris, knowing that Maria wouldn't want to follow as she wants revenge which will get her killed. Annette stated that staying wouldn't solve anything, and they will find their way around it. Terrara, Maria's mom, was now a vampire and was brought before Ursabet to showcase her magic and demonstrate her loyalty. But Terrara blasted her face, which infuriates her, but she keeps her cool and ordered her to fetch the abbot who sacrificed her as she put up ice to prevent the effect of the sun and was on her way. Edouard, a friend of Annette and also a night creature, gathered the dead bodies of the monks for his forge master and abbot as he says a prayer before burying them. The abbot was fascinated by Edouard as he was a night creature whose memories was intact, which was unusual for them. Just then, Terrara arrived and informed the abbot that the vampire messiah, Ursabet, wanted him to be at her beck and call. Disgusted by him, Terrara took her leave. Richter brought Maria food and tried comforting her, but she seemed to be very angry at him for abandoning her mother and running away with her. Richter tried explaining that he had no choice, but Maria saw him as a coward as she threw the food away and left. Terrara was alone and hungry for blood when Ulrich paid her a visit. She saw him as a monster and revealed her plans to leave Ursabet. Ulrich supported her decision but suggested she needed to eat first. Just then, a drunkard passed by, and she couldn't control her urge for blood any longer, ambushing him. Maria approached Alucard asking him what it's like to be a vampire, whether they have good in them and if they could be redeemed with love. Alucard affirmed, and while they were still discussing, they heard sound of drums from afar. On checking out, they realized they were National Guards sent by the Paris government as revolutionary army. Maria was delighted and ran towards them. Annette summoned the high priestess of her ancestors, lamenting that there was no light in the darkness, a sign that they had lost the battle to Ursabet. The high priestess, however, urged her to look deeper and listen for the voice of Baba Legba, a god with access to the portals between realms. Struggling to understand, Annette suddenly woke from her trance to find Richter beside her. He informed her that Maria won't be joining them on their journey to Paris, and they would need to travel together with Alucard. The abbot paid a visit to Ursabet as requested and informed her of how he lost many creatures in the battle, but he can make more with his machine. Ursabet suggested that he use the dead bodies of his monks to make more night creatures, leaving him shocked. He rejected the offer, stating that some of them might still retain part of their souls, like Edouard, since they were religious men. Still grieving, Ursabet proposed an idea for him to bring her dead friend back to life. But the abbot refused again, stating that vampires don't have souls. This time, however, Ursabet didn't give him any choice. Alucard, Annette, and Richter were prepared to venture to Paris to find the source of Sekhmet power, but before they left, they informed Mizark to watch over Maria, who was with the revolutionary army, and relay their goodbyes as they left. Meanwhile, the abbot placed Drolta's body into the machine. It was an abomination, but after it appeared to work, Drolta was brought back to life. However, she still retained her loyalty to Ursabet and not to her forge master. Episode 2 showcases a flashback of Drolta in southern Egypt in the year 119 CE. She was human and a devoted princess of the goddess Sekhmet, as she prays to the mummy every day. She was attending to a young child one day when armed men rushed into the temple and slaughtered everyone they came across. Drolta was hurt and happened to be the only survivor as she cried profusely. She went further down into the temple only to encounter her worst nightmare. It turns out the mummy of Sekhmet was stolen by the armed men. She knelt, cried, and prayed to Sekhmet to make her stronger so that she can fight such evil. Just then, she spotted a vampire munching on the blood of the dead worshippers. She picks a sword and rushed to attack him, but she was overpowered. The vampire grabbed her, but Drolta, not wanting to yield, pushed the vampire into a pointing sword from a statue and he was pinned. Drolta soon realized that Sekhmet answered her prayers and sent her a vampire, so she sliced its neck off as the blood poured into a cup. She drank the cup in other to become a vampire, in other to become stronger. Back to the present, Alucard, Richter, and Annette were on their way as Alucard informed them how Sekhmet mummy was stolen by thieves many years ago. They all thought it was lost forever, but he found traces of it. They were still discussing when Richter spotted his granddad Just's house on fire and rushed towards it. Annette, startled by a nearby spirit, as she tried to react to the situation, hesitated. Fortunately, Just was unharmed, though his house was engulfed in flames as he battled the attacking vampires. He was glad to see Alucard and his grandson, and together they discussed the deeds of Ursabet. Drolta emerged from the sunlight more powerful than ever as she was a night creature now, and was not affected by the sun. Ulrich happened to be spying on her as Ursabet was delighted to see her old friend back to life. Meanwhile, another vampire was spying on Just's home. Richter instructed Just to watch over Maria while she was away, and mentioned that Ursabet might consider the mummy important. Shortly after, they set off on their way to Paris. Mizrak accompanied Maria home to gather some supplies and waits for her outside. While gathering the items needed, she went to her room where she encountered her mother, Terrara. She was scared because her mother had become a vampire and might not be capable of love. Mizrak, noticing something was wrong, went in, spotted Terrara, and tried to attack, but she dodged it all and left the room quietly. Just, dressed in his Belmont costume, went into town and paid a visit to Liddy, his daughter's grave. After paying homage to her, he removed a stone from a wall, took out a ring from the opening, and wore it, declaring his intention to rejoin the war and stating that evil doesn't have to win anymore. Alucard informed Richter and Annette to hunt and forage for supplies before they crossed the river. Meanwhile, Ulrich paid a visit to Ursabet. He denied seeing Alucard, Richter, and the others, but to avoid arousing suspicion, he shared exciting news about a large group of revolutionary soldiers gathering to take her down. He agreed to hunt them all at night, but Drolta insisted she hunted them during the day, as she was immune to sunlight. Richter, still foraging, got attacked by vampires and defended himself as Annette appeared to assist him. On taking out the vampires, Richter accidentally gave out information of their adventure to Paris, as one of them escaped to relay the information while the other was killed. Richter realized he screwed up, but Annette advised him not to inform Alucard, so he wouldn't diss them. Drolta launched an all-out attack on the revolutionary army. Mizrak watched in horror and tried to help them, but Ulrich stopped him, fearing he may be killed. Drolta was horrific as she eliminated every single revolutionary army. Episode 3 showcases a flashback of the vampire priestess at Sekhmet's temple back in 1425 CE. They were gathered as a volunteer was brought forward to serve as a vessel for the goddess Sekhmet to manifest herself in the world. The volunteer branded herself as Drolta, urged her onward. However, as she drank Sekhmet's blood, the power overwhelmed her, and she was disintegrated, leaving Drolta disappointed. Back at the present, it was getting dark, so Terrara and Maria ventured outside where they spotted the dead bodies of the revolutionary soldiers killed by Drolta, and was transported to Abbott to make more night creatures. In the Abbott, the leader of the revolutionary army was first placed in the machine as she was transformed to a night creature, and Drolta was the first to welcome her. Annette was surrounded by her ancestors as they called on her. Well, she woke up on the boat as it turned out to be a dream. They were still on the way to Paris when they spotted some vampires hunting humans for fun. Alucard suggested they continue sailing, but Richter and Annette couldn't handle the strange sight as they launched an attack on the vampires, tearing them piece by piece. After eliminating them, Richter finally spilled the beans to Alucard of how he accidentally informed an escaped vampire of their trip to Paris. Terrara took her daughter Maria to the place where she first summoned creatures for other realms. Maria's heart was filled with rage as it affected her magic, making her summon dark creatures. The messenger informed Ursabet of Alucard's trip to Paris as Drolta suggested she go hunt him down. To acknowledge his loyalty, the messenger was branded. Just then Ulrich appeared. It then occurred to Ursabet that Ulrich hadn't done anything to acknowledge his loyalty, so he was held up and also branded. Terrara guided Maria as she opened a giant dark portal. Just then, a monster came rushing out. Maria couldn't control the monster because she was scared, but her mother guided her, and she soon realized she had to be like the monster to be able to control it. She was finally able to control it, and returned it back to its realm. They were still at when Just attacked Terrara, restraining Maria as he wanted to kill Terrara, who had become a vampire. After a huge fight, Terrara was able to pin him down and was about to bite him, but she restrained herself and apologized. They heard a sound from afar, and on checking it out, it turns out Ursabet had created an army of night creatures from the National Guards for her plans. Maria was enraged as she ventures off to kill her father, the creator of this monsters. Meanwhile, Drolta bid farewell to Ursabet as she prepared to venture off to Paris. Alucard and his crew had already arrived in Paris, but the atmosphere was tense as the king was about to be executed by guillotine. The king was about to be placed in the guillotine, but Annette happened to be distracted by a spirit from afar. The king was executed, and as his spirit was out of his body, Annette could feel all as she was immersed by the Orisha of divination, the African deity, Orunmila. Stay tuned for more episodes of Castlevania Nocturne on its mythical and subscribe for more mind-blowing recaps like this. Thanks for watching.